Welcome to the Driven Moms Answering Adversity interview series, stories of success through setbacks from Mom Elevated. Together, we can shine a light on how normal challenges and struggles are, along with how we can overcome and rise above them. Today, we have Katherine here to share with us her story, and I'm super excited to get started. Can you just tell us a little bit briefly about your story to begin?
Yeah, of course. My name's Katherine, as you said. Thank you for having me.
Thanks.
I grew up in what people know as the Church of Scientology. Most people know it through Tom Cruise because he had a lot to say like 5, 10 years ago. But it's basically it's really a cult, and he's a part of it, which is really wild that nobody even talks to him about it. But we won't talk about Tom Cruise. We're talking about me. And I wrote a book called The Bad Cadet. And I grew up in the inner core of like the Church of Scientology. So people don't realize that there's like this group inside called the Sea Org, or some people may not realize. And the Sea Org is like the people have dedicated 1 billion years of their lives to work for the Church of Scientology. And my parents did that. And in doing so, they also dedicated me as like the unborn child when I was born. And then I was at a certain age sent to boarding school to train to be in the Church of Scientology's Sea Org. So that was like how my life began.
It's wild. Okay. Yeah, I had no
Yeah.
idea there was that kind
Mhm.
of structure involved in it. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And so growing up in that, do you think what kind of adversity did you face inside? And then as you obviously exited and left, I'm sure there was a slew of adversity that you had to overcome through that. But was there anything internally when you were still involved in it that happened that just kind of shifted and was like, this can't be right. I gotta get out of this.
Yeah. So growing up, I totally believed in the what Scientology believes, which is what L. Ron Hubbard made up, the founder of Scientology. So I believe my parents were saving the world, and I was a big part of it. My purpose in life was to save the world. So I was pretty happy overall, and thinking like this is my goal. And then my parents didn't even raise me. I was sent off to boarding school by the time I was 8 years old with other kids whose parents were in the Sea Org. Yeah. So I was totally on board, but as I become older, teenager, I'm reading a lot of books and noticing the books I'm reading, normal books like Babysitter's Club, Sweet Valley High. I'm like, wait, there's like houses and moms and dads, and you can go babysit other kids, and you have sports. And I'm just like, that looks way more fun. And you could be a cheerleader or do this. Like you have choices here. Whereas I was just told you're going to be a Sea Org member. So as I'm getting older, I begin to question whether or not I'm the right fit for the Sea Org, because I just want to like have fun and enjoy myself. And they're very serious. It's a serious business trying to save the world. And I'm always too loud and getting in trouble. I talk to boys too much. It's just this very teenager reaction, but except for I'm in a cult and they're trying to like package me into like a box, and they can't. And eventually you follow my journey as I question whether or not the Sea Org is right for me, or if I should just leave and like have a life but still be a Scientologist, because you could be a Scientologist but not be like working for the church. And I was like, it looks more fun to do that. And that's this my book is a journey. It's a coming of age story, and I think it's a very universal coming of age story. A lot of girls or boys are always trying to figure themselves out, except for I'm trying to figure myself out in a cult. So
Okay.
yeah.
So is that kind of where the title comes from then, is from the Sea Org, and you have to go to a boarding school, basically a boot camp, and like that kind of
Mhm.
thing? Like, is that where the Bad Cadet comes from? You are
Exactly.
technically the Bad Cadet?
Yeah. So it was called Cadet Orgs. That's literally what our school was called. It
Oh,
was the Pac Branch Cadet Organization. Cadet Org is for short. So I was a bad cadet. And a cadet is a military term. I don't know if you know that, but yeah, it's like when you're training to be in the military, you're a cadet. They model the Sea Org after the military. So us children were all cadets because we were going to be in basically the Sea Org, which is very like a military. They have like a commanding officer, and like our cadet was a mini military. We had all of our cadets had posts instead of jobs, but we
gosh.
were children, and it was like you are the cadet sorry commanding officer. Like a 14-year-old will be bossing around all the other kids and like and so on. And I was like the Division 1 secretary, and I was in charge of doing this, and I would be assigned a post, and these are my steps for the week. Yeah.
That's so
So
crazy. Although, so I guess in a way, I could see how that translates to a church because even in, other cults or just other churches in general, you have, missionaries and like you can see how that translates, I guess, from the post is kind of like your calling. Here's your calling. Please go do this. That's so
yeah, except for in
interesting.
this case, it's like menial tasks. You're just we're at a ranch, and we're just like our jobs are having to keep the ranch functioning. Like you're the laundry in charge, or you're in charge of the gardens, like that. And we're children instead of adults. And I would say, like, if you wanted to do comparison, even like like the youth leaders, like for Christian churches when they have the camps, like the high schoolers take care of the little kids. In a sense, it's like that, except for they're not taking care of us. Like the older kids are bossing us around, and it's not about nurturing. It's like you need to get your job done.
That's so
Yeah.
crazy. Oh my gosh. Okay, so then when you left, did you feel like there was a lot you had to unpack with that? Because if you grew up, basically being raised by your peers in a way instead
Mm-hmm.
of adult figures, did you find that that was a big like mind shift thing that you had to do when you left to just rediscover not only yourself or like I don't even or did you have any issues with adults at that time? Like, if you tried to get a job and had a boss, like, was there any adult leader figure issues? Or even, I mean, that's so interesting to me to just not have
I
that
know.
influence.
Yeah, well, I left at 16, so I was very young still. So I had to go to high school, and I actually went to go stay with extended family that I had never met before. So then I went to high school, and high school is not like the movies. So I was in for a shock. Um, and I was expecting like Bring It On or something, which is like a very specific area of California. Plus, it's still a movie; it's not realistic at all.
Right.
So I think mostly what I had to adjust to was like culture shock and like having to just go to regular school, lack of education, being a little bit behind in some areas because they weren't very good about education as well. And then my aunt, yeah, like we had some conflicts because I didn't feel like she was very Christian on top of it. So she thought like it was weird that I just wanted to watch TV all the time, but I never watched TV. And she's just like, "You're gonna go to hell if you watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer." And I'm just like, "What?"
What is
So I
happening?
had to like really just it was a strange like 6 months, and I just wanted to get back to my friends who are in Los Angeles, and some of them were starting to leave the Sea Org. So there's a whole like process that I went through, and like when I joined with my friends, like we're living our best lives, but we're just like 17. I'm 17 now in LA, have my own job, have my own apartment, and like barely surviving, $5 to get in the gas tank. But I'm so happy because I get to make my choices. Um, and I still consider myself a Scientologist, but then something happens where I get like there's so much in Scientology that you would learn when you would read this book, or if you go online, and there's so many videos. SPTV is like a huge thing on YouTube right now where they interview people who grew up in Scientology. If anyone wants to know more, it's so hard to unpack all of the information. But something that did happen was that my brother was getting sick. He was still in the Sea Org, my older brother, and they're like, "Oh, it's because you talked to Katherine, and like don't talk to her anymore." Like that's the amount of control they have on its members. And so my mom and my dad and my sister and my brother all stopped talking to me, and I was about to turn 21 at this point. And that was when I kind of had like a wait, why does this church have that control over my family like that? And how could they ever accuse me of being the reason why someone's being sick? And even then, I still remained a Scientologist for a while. I tried to explain it away. But I met somebody who's now my current husband, but at the time was somebody I was dating, and he was not a Scientologist. So being able to talk to him and unpack it all, and like as I exposed him to Scientology, I would see it through his eyes, and I began to see how money hungry it was and all these other aspects of it. And that there's a whole evolution that I went through, which would be the second. I'm gonna plan to write a second book called The Bad Scientologist, because then I'm now a bad Scientologist because I'm talking bad about Scientology. But
Right.
they have this a cult, if anybody wants to know, is anybody who tries to control your thoughts or tries to control what information you take in. And it was against the rules to go on the internet to read anything negative about Scientology. Anybody saying anything negative about Scientology was wrong and a liar, and you shouldn't believe them. So if you're in a relationship and somebody tells you that everybody else is wrong, that their information is getting is false, or if you're in a group like that, like that's a huge red flag. So
Yeah.
like that's something that I've like as I've learned like what a cult is, I'm like, oh yeah, that's Scientology to a T. Like they try to control what information you get and what you say. Like you actually could feel guilty for saying anything bad about Scientology. Like that's how much control they have on its people.
So that's fascinating to me. And the fact that
Yeah.
like it's so easy for so many to fall into line into that and like
Mm-hmm.
just go along with it and not question it and be like, yeah, this is the way it needs to be. It is fascinating to me how not
Yeah.
just Scientology, but cults in general are pretty huge, honestly. So the fact that
Mm-hmm.
like the mind is an amazing thing. So seeing how you can just blindly follow things like that when maybe you even know that
Yeah.
something's off, but it's fine. It'll be fine. And you kind of justify
Mm-hmm.
it away in many different ways. What made you decide to write your book then after?
Yeah, after all that, right?
Yeah.
So, like I was saying, people don't like to speak out on Scientology who are Scientologists, firstly, because you get in trouble. Secondly, you feel really guilty and you would get handled, is what they would call, if you said anything negative or if you had a question, even if it's not negative. Like, I don't understand this about what L. Ron Hubbard said here. There's like, well, what do you not understand? What's wrong with you? Right. So I grew up in that mindset. So when I was around 20, I did start writing my book. I'm 38 now. So 18 years later, it's here. But I wrote it thinking, I don't know if I'll ever publish this because anybody who speaks on Scientology, even if it's not even an attack on Scientology, will be declared a suppressive person, and I would lose my family. So I was still in touch with my parents, even though they knew I wasn't a Scientologist. By like 22, I wasn't a Scientologist. And I had a conversation with my mom, and I said, you grew up in a Pentecostal religion, she had told me, because I'd asked,
Yeah.
and you just chose to find your own religion. Like, let me find my own place. And she was able to understand that. And we just, you know, I wouldn't say anything negative about Scientology. And she was in my life. My mom and my dad would come visit me. I moved to Minnesota. They're in Los Angeles. So they were involved in my life. And so with my older sister, and I had children, I got married, the whole shebang. And then Leah Remini's show came out. Have you heard of it? The
Yes.
Aftermath? Yeah, and it's an amazing show. And two of my best friends were on it. They were my wedding, like we're really close. Yeah. So because they were on it and they found out, my parents found out I knew about it, they disconnected from me, even though I did not go on it myself. And that was very shocking and like upsetting. It took me a while to process it. And then after I processed, and I still haven't really processed it. It's upsetting because they had met I have 3 kids, a 9-year-old and 6-year-old twins. And they had met my twins. They were a year old when they chose to like cut us all out. And I'm like, but that's your grandkids. They've lost so much of their lives.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I have this book I've been dabbling on off and on for years. So then I was like, I mean, the only reason why I wasn't going to write it was because I didn't want to lose my family. So then I was like, well, I guess I'm going to write this story because I do think it's a story to be told about the school called the Pack Ranch, and that I was like, I have it here, so I'm going to write it and put it
Yeah.
out there. And yeah, so
That's
that's
beautiful.
where we got
Oh,
there.
well,
Yeah,
I'm glad that you chose to. I can't wait to I'm gonna get it. I can't wait to read
yeah.
it. So on the same kind of wavelength, what do you think it is about entrepreneurs that makes us continue on through challenges without giving up when the times get tough or when you're, faced with, well, it's either this or something detrimental might happen, like losing your family or what do you think it is about us that still makes us continue on and be like, I need to tell this story. I need to help this person. I need to do this without just
Hmm.
calling it quits and being like, I'll just go get a job.
Yeah. For me personally, I'm always somebody who tries to look at, okay, what can I make out of this? So like, kind of like, when you get lemons, make lemonade. So this happened, and I'm like, well, there's a story that I've been wanting to tell that I've been holding back from. So here's an opportunity. And I've always been like that. When something bad happens, I try to be like, okay, this isn't great, but what can I make out of this? What can I make the best out of it? And so, I mean, I honestly, it's been really great. And like to be speaking freely about Scientology is freeing in a way. But there's still a little bit of guilt because it's like this is what my parents believe, and they're not even going to watch any of these videos. They're not allowed to. So
Right.
I still have that guilt, but I'm also like, this is a story that I have a right to tell. And also I think it's helpful to tell it. So, yeah, and here we go.
Yeah. No, I think that's beautiful. And that is exactly, I always, either you find a door, a window, some kind of something that's open when something else closes. And that's definitely the opportunity piece there, I think. What overall takeaway or lesson from our conversation, from this, from your story, from everything, do you think that other mompreneurs would be able to use from just your experience specifically?
I think that hopefully what they could take from it is that you can make your own choices and like don't let somebody tell you what to think or believe. So let's say if you're trying to start a business and you have these big ideas and somebody keeps dumping on them, like you don't have to listen to that. You could do whatever you want. Like it's your life and grab it by the horns.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think yes, that's wonderful. I'm gonna put that somewhere. I'm gonna put it on one of my boards. I have sticky notes everywhere.
I love
And
that.
then
Yeah.
what do you think is the best way for others to find you, get to know you a little bit, if they want to learn more about you, learn more about your story, find your book? I will obviously
Mm-hmm.
drop all the links in the description as well, but that way, in case they're just listening, they still can access that information.
Yeah, of course. The Bad Cadet is available everywhere, Amazon for print, and then everywhere for ebook. I'm hoping to come out with the Audible in the next couple months. My kids have been home from school, so I have put a big pause on that. But I'll be back at it September, so hopefully October have an Audible out, and then I have a Twitter at the Bad Cadet and at the Bad Cadet for Instagram as well. And I do answer DMs, so if anybody has questions, if they want to know more. And then if anybody wants to know about Scientology itself, there are so many great videos on YouTube to just go like SPTV, and there's going to be like a whole pile of them. I've done a ton of interviews on there as well. But I just want to get the word out about Scientology. So it has tax exempt status, which is wild. So they're not paying millions and millions of dollars that could be going towards America and our country, which we dearly can use. And it's a money hungry organization. So the more people who know about it, the more people who realize how much control it has on families and that it's not a good group, I think the better. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. I can't even tell you. It means a lot to me, and I hope that those listening also get a lot out of it. It's a beautiful story to hear, and get the book, read the book,
Yes.
give your
Thank you
feedback.
so much for having me. Yeah, and for letting me share my voice and share my story. And yeah, anybody can reach out to me, as I said, the Bad Cadet at Instagram or Twitter.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I'm
Thank
again
you.
so grateful to have you here with us today, and your story is inspirational, and your willingness to be open about it is very much appreciated and needed in this space. I personally know a few people who have left cults. I actually was baptized Mormon in college and backslid,
Oh, wow.
very cult-like
Yeah.
as well. It has its moments,
Yeah.
not the fundamentalist one, so that's good. But
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
it's just so interesting, and hearing more stories, I think really that helps, just sharing knowledge, experience, and the truth behind it is, seeing
Mm-hmm.
behind the curtains, I think helps tremendously. It's an easy thing to fall into, but also a great thing to get out of as well if you need to.
Yeah. That's
Um,
great.
so for those of you out there facing your own adversity, know that you are not alone. That is the whole purpose of why we're here doing this series, and why I am so blessed to be able to share other people's stories like Catherine's. When you need an extra hand or mind for brainstorming during your mompreneur journey, we'd love to work with you through the Mom Elevated Society. You will find monthly check-ins, goal setting and assessing, and so much more for both your business and your mom life. And until next time, keep shooting for the stars. Bye.